You've got a lot to do. Wouldn't it be nice to have a little less on your mind? Eide Bailly can take the pressure off your day-to-day accounting, taxes, data issues, and other business needs. What inspires you inspires us.
This is the Art of Dental Finance and Management podcast, brought to you by Art Wiederman, CPA with Eide Bailly. Whether it's taxes and investing or planning wisely, Art is the expert to make your dental practice profitable. At Eide Bailly, what inspires you inspires us. We provide a suite of accounting and advisory services dedicated to the total care of your practice. Visit our website to access our tools and resources tailored for dentists, eidebailly.com/dentist. That's EIDEBAILLY.com/dentist. This podcast is distributed with the understanding that Art Wiederman, CPA, and Eide Bailly, LLP are not rendering legal, accounting, or other professional advice. Listeners should consult with their business advisors before acting on any of the information or opinions shared. If you have questions and or feedback, make sure to email Art over at awiederman@eidebailly.com. That's AWIEDERMAN @EIDEBAILLY.com. You can also give Art a call at 657-279-3243. Without further delay, here's your host, Dental CPA Art Wiederman.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Art of Dental Finance and Management with Art Wiederman, CPA. I'm your host, Art Wiederman, and welcome to my podcast on this beautiful March Thursday morning here in Southern California at the World Broadcasting headquarters of my podcast here in South Orange County. We're not getting any rain today, which is nice. We're going to get some on Friday. But all right, enough with the weather report, folks. I've got a great episode for you today. I have two of my dear friends in dentistry from the California Dental Association today. Matthew Nelson and Katie Fornelli. We're going to talk about couple of really important topics. Number one, what's going on in organized dentistry and what does CDA do and all that kind of stuff. But the gist of our conversation today is going to be talking to you about the world of PPOs. And this has been a big topic with our clients, with dentists at the CDA. I talk to the CDA folks on a regular basis, and it has been one of the top conversation topics. Should I sign up for PPOs? Should I stay with PPOs? Should I go out of network? We're going to have all that, and Katie and Matt are experts on this topic, and we'll get to them in a minute. But I want to just get some business done before we get to them. First of all, I want to, again, thank our incredible marketing partner, Decisions in Dentistry magazine. Lorraine Kent and her team have just the best clinical content of any publication out there. You can get 140 continuing education courses for a very reasonable price. Go to www.decisionsindentistry.com and take a look at all the great stuff that they've got going on. I do want to share with you, and we'll talk to Katie and Matt a little bit about that, as we've got some live seminars coming up. And again, I'll let Katie and Matt tell you a little bit about that in June in Northern California for younger dentists who are trying to figure out what path do you want to take in your career. So we'll tell you a little bit about that. I do want to let you know that we will be at the California Dental Association. Not only do we have a booth, and we are booth number 1472. I would love for any of you who are listeners of the podcast who are going to be at CDA in Anaheim to come by, say hi, give me a high five, fist pump, handshake, whatever it is that suits your fancy. I'd love to meet you. I've gotten many emails and from you telling us that I think we're doing a good job on this podcast. So I'd love to meet you. I'm going to be giving 2, potentially 3 talks at CDA. So I'm real excited about that. So the CDA is middle of May, and you all know when that's going to be. So if you're going to be out here for that down in Anaheim, we'd love to see you. Before we get to Katie and Matt, I want to reiterate again what's going on with this employee retention tax credit. The Internal Revenue Service came out on March 5th, I believe it was, And again, this podcast will air probably about a month after, so sometime in early April. But IR 2023-40, the topic that the IRS put out to the public, the title is, I'm going to read you the first couple of paragraphs, says IRS issues renewed warning on employee retention credit claims. False claims generate compliance risk for people and businesses claiming credit improperly. I'm just going to read two paragraphs from this. From Washington, D.C., the Internal Revenue Service today issued a renewed warning urging people to carefully review the Employee Retention Credit ERC guidelines before trying to claim the credit as promoters continue pushing ineligible people to file. The IRS and tax professionals continue to see third parties aggressively promoting these ERC schemes on radio and online. These promoters charge large upfront fees or a fee that is contingent on the amount of the refund. And the promoters may not inform taxpayers that wage deductions claimed on the business federal income tax return must be reduced by the amount of the credit. Many of these promoters do not even ask you, did you get a PPP loan? Because that has to be taken into account. Folks, I got something on my Instagram feed this morning, and it said, don't listen to your CPA. They don't understand ERC. And the reason that these promoters are getting very, very aggressive, folks, is that their window is starting to run out because you have to amend your second quarter payroll return until July 31st of 2023. So that's about 3 months from now. So once that window closes for the second quarter, 3 months later, the window will close for the third quarter. And then the 2021 windows have about a year left, but these promoters are coming aggressively, not only after dentists, but every single type of business. Before we came on the air here, Katie was sharing with me that CDA is going to do a publication. It'll be out by the time you listen to this podcast, but just promise me, be careful. If you have a problem and someone is pushing you to do this and you're not sure, send me an email at awiederman@eidebailey.com. My office phone number is 657-279-3243. I will be the voice of reason, and I'm not going to get much more into this, but folks, you really want to be careful about this. It's kind of like, I equate it to if someone called you up and said, hey, I've got this, they don't know you, you don't know them. I've got this great investment opportunity where you can make $1 million. Would you sign up for that from an unsolicited phone call? I'd be very, very careful. That's all I'm saying to you.
Be sure to check out our new Eide Bailey podcast, Ebb and Flow, a business podcast providing inspired insight on issues and trends the middle market faces. Hear unique business stories, get answers to frequently asked and unasked questions, and understand business topics that matter to you. Available now on your favorite podcast platform.
Okay, let's get to our guests and our topic. My good friends from the California Dental Association, Katie Fornelli and Matt Nelson. We're going to talk again, as I mentioned, a little bit about organized dentistry, what's going on, what does CDA do, and we're going to spend the gist of our time on how PPOs work. So let me first tell you a little bit about both of them. Katie Fornelli is the Director of Early Career Dentists with the California Dental Association. She has 20 years of industry experience, and she offers career advice, education, and practice management guidance to early career dentists. Previously a practice management consultant and coach, she has led hundreds of dentists and dental teams on topics such as leadership, strategic planning, and practice systems. Matthew Nelson is a practice analyst with the CDA. He specializes in areas of practice management, dental insurance plan analysis, and embezzlement. I hope he doesn't specialize in embezzlement. I think he meant he specializes in being able to find people who do embezzlement. I can assure you he does not specialize in embezzlement. He has lectured at CDA Presents and at Component Dental Society meetings. His current work with the CDA practice support includes providing guidance and information directly to members. He has been in the dental field since 2015 as an office manager of a large group practice and in private consulting. Prior to dental, he worked in various leadership positions for large corporations that developed his ability to lead large and diverse teams. And he is a graduate of Cal State University, Chico. And the reason they're on my podcast, folks, is they both laugh at my jokes. People that don't laugh at my jokes are not allowed on my podcast. Is that right, guys?
That's right.
Absolutely.
We were laughing on mute. We were there with you, laughing the whole time, especially about embezzlement.
Yeah, exactly. You were laughing with me, not at me, right?
Correct.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Katie and Matt. It's great. We've been talking about doing this for a long time, and I'm glad we finally got to this. And I first want to thank you, and not only the California Dental Association, but this is a national podcast. If any of you are listening who are part of organized dentistry or part of local and state societies, all of you who participate in helping dentists and helping the dental profession through organized dentistry, just thank you so much. It's the work that you guys do is so important for the great profession of dentistry. So welcome to the podcast. And let's start out, guys. I talked a little bit about, what you do. To get a little more into detail about, Katie, a little more about,
Sure.
You were a consultant, and then you were, now you're working with the younger dentists starting up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Great. Sounds good. Thanks, Art. Great introduction. That's correct. So Matt and I, we both have very similar backgrounds. We both are experts in managing dental practices. We both have been consultants and coaches in dental practices for, my experience was with a large nationally recognized consulting firm. And then I've also independently consulted and coached for dentists. Matt started out as an office manager in a large practice and then as well evolved into consulting. Our roles at CDA, we really look at ourselves as the business hub for your dental practice. So we are in the practice support department. We are the practice management experts. My focus now, of course, as you mentioned, recently evolved into early career dentists. But I have experience working with practice owners and with associate dentists and helping practice owners, as you know, transition into practice ownership, out of practice ownership when they're ready to retire and move into another phase of their career. So what we offer is like I said, we're kind of like the business hub. You can come to CDA, you can call us, you can email us, you can go on to cda.org. We have hundreds of resources having to do with managing every business element of the dental practice. So if it's not clinical, if it's more on the business side, if it has to do with dental benefit plans, employment practices, practice management, and regulatory compliance, we have a team. It's not just me and Matt. There's 8 of us who are all experts in managing dental practices and helping you navigate through all of those business decisions that impact you every day. It's important to note you don't have to be a practice owner to contact us. I get a lot of calls. Obviously, my role with early career dentists, most of our early career dentists are associates. When you're an associate in a practice, you're often an employee. So we represent our employee dentists. We represent dentists who are working as faculty at the dental schools. If you're working in a public health clinic, in more of a clinic environment, if you're working for a corporate dental practice, we help you navigate all of those career decisions and anything that would impact you from the business side.
It's the resources that you guys provide are amazing. And doctors, if you're in California or in any other state, take advantage of your state and local component dental societies. They are there to help you to be successful. Matt, what's your story? Do you laugh at my jokes? I know Katie does. Katie always does. Do you laugh at my jokes?
Yeah, definitely. After you called me an expert embezzler, I was like, wow, I guess I need to reword my bio. That's great.
Well, I always help doctors, to improve their and increase their net worth. I guess that's one way to increase your net worth. No, let's not do that. So, what's your history, Matt?
Yeah, a lot of, like Katie said, I did a lot of leadership for big corporations before moving into the dental world, and bringing that leadership experience and training experience, and then getting to learn dental, and then coming in now into CDA and being able to share that and create resources and share with our members. I think it's pretty rewarding when you get a call from a member that probably didn't even know that the practice support division existed, and then being able to give them everything they need to either improve a process or fix a situation or whatever it is, and then to see how thankful they are to know that you had a little impact in assisting someone make their practice better is just it's extremely rewarding. And so being able to take this like experience that we've gained in managing practices or big practices or working in group owned practices or working in consulting and seeing a little bit of everything and being able to share that experience is it's very rewarding work.
So no, it absolutely is. And I've been in dentistry almost 40 years, and what the societies do are amazing. So real quick, let's talk about advantages to organized dentistry. I don't see any disadvantages to being involved in organized dentistry. It's all advantages. And what can a state organization do for its members? Guys, talk about that.
Well, I think we're a little biased, obviously, but I think
of course. It's important. Well, I am too.
Yeah, but I think that, like Matt said, when you've worked outside of organized dentistry, and you may not even realize all the things that we offer at CDA, to come work for CDA and realize all of the different departments and resources and benefits that we offer, it really is it is impressive. So outside of our Department of Practice Support, CDA, we're the largest state association in the country. We represent 70% of dentists in California, which is really important because that makes us a much stronger voice legislatively for our members. We represent 27,000 dentists in the state of California. So our numbers are just, sheer volume of numbers. It's quite impressive. So obviously we offer advocacy and legislative action for our members. We offer practice support, which is, again, that business hub for your dental practice. Education, you mentioned CDA Presents, which is our in-person live conventions, and they're huge. We have 20,000 attendees at our Anaheim convention, and then we offer another one in Northern California in the fall. We have online learning. We have an online learning platform now where we have webinars and different modules that you can take, and lots of online learning opportunities. And then, as you, I'm sure, Art, know, we also, our subsidiary of CDA is the Dentist Insurance Company, and so you have access to all of the Dentist Insurance Company products, which is your malpractice coverage, in addition to all of the business-related insurance needs that you have. So those are kind of the top four benefits. Of course, there's other benefits in terms of, there's other tiers within those benefits in terms of education and what we do in practice support. But I think the biggest benefit is that we support dentists wherever you are in your career. I think that there's often a misconception that we only support private practicing dentists, and that's not the case. We represent all dentists who are members. We even represent the non-members in terms of advocacy and legislation, and that's an important thing to remember as well.
So I was going to ask you that, can dentists, and again, we're a national podcast, can dentists outside of California or non-dentists be members of CDA?
You can, absolutely. We do have an affiliate membership category. And so we do have a lot of doctors who are members with their state association. And we always encourage that you want to join your state's association. So every state has their own state association, and it's a tripartite membership. So I'm not going to go into what that is, but you're a member of your local tripartite.
Are you allowed to say that?
I believe so.
That sounds like a Jeopardy question.
I know.
Okay.
And when I go to the dental schools and I'm like, it's a tripartite, and I just kind of get like the blinders on. So so it's a tripartite, meaning you're a member of your local dental society, the state, and the ADA. So it's all one membership. And so we do encourage you always to be a member of your state association. However, if you want to take advantage of some of the benefits we have in California, you can become an affiliate member. And what that would provide you with is access to our education, our access to CDA Presents in Anaheim or in San Jose this year, and access to our online learning platforms. So it's a great option if you are not in California.
And before I forget, let's talk about the courses that we're doing in Northern California. We've already completed the courses, or by the time this podcast goes up on the internet, we will have completed our 2 courses, the one we did in San Diego and the one we did in Riverside. But we have one on June 10th and June 22nd, I believe, are the dates. So
correct.
Let's just talk about those courses, and then we're going to get into the subject matter of PPOs.
Yes. So really excited to be offering these courses. So they are designed for early career dentists. And as you mentioned, it's really to identify your career path, what career path is best for you, what aligns with who you are as a dentist, what do you want out of your career. We have Art who's speaking on budgeting guidance. We have my colleague Anders who is going to talk about where the profession is going and using a lot of analytics and data about where the profession is currently and where the profession's headed. And then I'll be speaking on different career paths and different career models and options for you as an early career dentist. So it's a great program. I'm really excited about it. It's really different. It's not in a conference room at a hotel. We're doing these at really fun venues, Top Golf at a brewing company. We're making it really fun, interactive. We have a full hour of networking so that you can mingle around the room, meet your colleagues, meet some mentors in dentistry, and then of course talk with the experts who are speaking at the program. So a lot of fun.
So they want to sign up for these because we do have limited space, I believe.
Yes.
That they just go to cda.org. Is that what they do, Katie?
Correct. Yes. So cda.org and under our events and our events page. So it's under virtual and live events under cda.org, and we have a landing page. And they're called Now and Next in Dentistry, Mapping Out Your Career. So Great. There's a landing page for those. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about that. And again, make sure if you do come to the CDA, folks, I would recommend go to the CDA's. The CDA has a whole booth. It's not a booth, really. It's an area near the front of the on the conference floor. And you know what I would do? I will bet you that most of you don't know. And by the way, this is not, I'm not doing a paid commercial for CDA. I just believe in what they do so much. Just go grab one of the folks from CDA and just say, can you tell me what you do? And they will gladly tell you the different things. And you might say, I had no idea you did that. I had no idea there was this. I had no idea what they do. And there's just a lot of stuff. So I would encourage you. That's why they're there. That's why they put on the CDA Presents and all these programs. All right. So let's get into our topic, which is what I really want to talk about. What the three of us are very passionate about talking about is PPOs. Now, so let me give you a little bit of just a little statistics. A recent survey by the CDA, is there a theme there? A recent survey by the CDA on Mind of the Dentist shows that dental benefit plans, this is really interesting. Dental benefit plan decisions and negotiations is a top priority for CDA member dentists, and the ADA Health Policy Institute's most recent economic outlook and emerging issues in dentistry poll found that 1 in 6 dental practices have dropped out of some insurance networks since January of 2023, impacting 17.5% of their patient base on average. So, folks, I'm just going to make a comment before we get started here is my experience is ever since the pandemic has kind of, I'm not going to say subsided because unfortunately COVID-19 is here for the duration, but ever since our economy and our life has kind of gotten back to normal, we are hearing, Katie and Matt are hearing more and more about dentists starting to think about this topic. So let's get into this. First of all, give us, PPOs 101. How do they work? What is a PPO? How does it work? How does it operate? Let's start with that.
Yeah, PPO is usually an insurance that'll allow the patient to pick their provider. They can go to that provider, and there's an agreed upon fee schedule that's usually less than the doctor's usual and customary fees, but it's agreed upon fee schedule that the patients would get, that cost. And in most cases, the PPO will pay, a percentage of the treatment towards that, leaving the patient a portion to pay as well.
Okay, so and they're all different. So you go to insurance
Right.
company A's fee schedule may be different than insurance B, B's fee schedule. Does it matter like what part of the country you're in, or how many dentists? How do they determine what the fees are? And we're not going to get into specifics, but how do they determine?
Yeah, that's, I think, some information that, we don't have all that information. I think that's a lot of it's proprietary information from the plans we
Right.
have. And, we have heard in some cases it's geographical. So in areas where there's less participating providers in that, with that plan in that community, there may be, an increased fee schedule, or in places where there are an abundance of providers in one area, it might be a lower fee schedule.
Okay. So, now we know what a PPO is. Why would a dentist want to join a PPO? Let's talk about advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, I think a lot of the advantages are that it's like free marketing. And so if you're trying to build up your patient base or trying to get patients in quickly, a lot of times that is one of the easiest ways to grow your patient base quickly, is to be in contract with them. So you're listed on the website, or you're directed to that practice when you call your plan to find out who's close by. So I think, growing your patient base quickly is a really good one. I think, patients that have maybe like a lower patient portion that they need to pay, that's another reason why they might want to go there to your practice.
Okay.
I see with associate doctors, because I work with so many of the dental students who are graduating and getting ready to launch their career, that they're presented with, here are the 5 plans or the 10 plans that the employer is asking them to contract with. And a lot of times it's part of the employment agreement. And you just sign up for them because that's what you do as an associate, and you might be working in multiple locations, and you sign up for all those plans as part of your employment agreement. And then you start working as an associate, and you get further into your career, and when you go to start a practice, or you go into a group practice situation or a partnership, you just kind of carry those plans with you. So sometimes it's just like an early career decision, and it's part of the job.
Okay. So now I'll tell you some things we see is when it's amazing to me that dentists are still starting practices all over the country on a regular basis, a lot. There's a lot of new practices, and I think that's fantastic because that shows the entrepreneurial spirit of the dental profession. But we're also seeing dentists being told that when they start a practice that they should sign up because they have no patience. Not that they don't have patience with people. They don't have patience to treat. They start from zero. They've got this overhead that they've got to cover. So they need bodies in the chairs to cover their overhead to pay the bills, right? So people say, oh, you should just sign up with every single PPO. Is that a good idea? I know the answer to the question, but you tell me what you think.
Well, I'm personally never a fan of the all or nothing, like the always or never do this approach. But I think you got to have a strategy in place, and I think you need to evaluate each plan individually and make sure that it actually works for you before you get into network with that. I mean, there's so many things to look at, like who the employer groups are in the area. If you can live with those fee schedules, looking at the limitations and exclusions and see if those work for you. There's so much that you need to evaluate with that. And it is a good way to get patients in quickly. If you are contracted with the plans, it will help you, especially in a startup, grow that patient base quickly. But, I think if you're taking that time to build a startup and design the practice the way you want the practice to be for you, you should also take that time with your contracts and make sure that the contracts represent what you want to represent in your practice, and not just sign up with all of them, because then you're doing all this stuff to build a startup. Great. in your vision. And then if you're just going to sign up with every single contract, then you're kind of off your vision on that part.
Yeah, I agree. One thing, so Matt and I, we do a presentation, and Matt's going to be doing this course in Anaheim for those of you who are going to be at CDA Presents, and it's called To Contract or Not to Contract. And we start that course with encouraging the doctors in the room to define your practice model. And so good decision or bad decision really comes down to what is the desired practice model that you're trying to achieve, and does the plan contract align with that practice model? So we all, we hear from a lot of doctors that say, I want to be a fee-for-service practice. Okay, well, where is your practice located? What are the patient demographics? What are the employers in your area? Do you have a lot of unions? Do you have, a lot of individual small business owners that do not provide dental benefits to their employees? So it's important to look at what is the practice model, what is your desired practice model? Do those two things match? Can you switch the practice model if it's not your desired model? And a lot of, of course, we're in California. I mean, we talk to doctors every single day, Art, who they may want to switch their practice model and move toward more of a fee-for-service practice model. But there are areas in California where it is really challenging. I won't say impossible, but their patient demographics will not sustain a fee-for-service practice. And so that's so good or bad all comes down to those external factors when you're looking to purchase a practice or start a practice from scratch. And I think that those are decisions you need to make before you even start the practice. And those are going to impact whether it is a good decision or a bad decision to contract with a plan.
So I have a question, and I think a lot of dentists may be a little confused about this. So if you are not in network with an insurance plan, that does not mean that you can't treat that patient, and that does not mean that that patient is not going to be able to use their insurance benefits, right? Let's talk about if a dentist chooses not to go with plan A, and a patient who has that insurance, they come in and you say, well, we're not contract, but we can still help you with that and file the forms, and you're still going to how does that work? And I know all the plans are different, but in general, if you're not in network with a plan, that patient is still going to get benefits from that plan, right?
Correct. In most instances, that is the case. You do have to read the plan contract because there are plans, they're EPOs, exclusive providers, where they could exclude the employer group or the patient from going to an out-of-network provider. So this is where review your contract, and we offer a service, and it's through the ADA where you can have your contract before you sign it. You can't have signed it. We will review the contract for you, and we'll highlight things such as if it's an EPO or if there's any limitations or exclusions. So it's really important to know your contract. But in most instances, a PPO means that the patients can go out of network and seek services from out-of-network providers. There may be limitations, though, to the maximums or certain procedures that you can obtain from out-of-network providers.
And again, it's like with anything in life that you sign up for. If it's you sign a contract to finance the purchase of a washing machine, read the contract, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
I think there's something else to mention too, is just that a lot of the plans do require that you are at least listed as a registered provider. It doesn't mean you sign up as a contract. It just means that you sign a form saying I'm going to be a non-participating provider or an out-of-network provider, and you have to at least get yourself registered on their database, or they could just completely deny the claim altogether. So It is important to reach out to each plan, and some of them it's a form, some of them it's just sending in your I think it's a W-9, sending in one of the W-9 forms saying wish to be an out-of-network provider with the plan. So each plan's a little different. Just got to make sure that you let them know before you send in any claims.
Yeah. Now, I also know that when you sign up with a PPO, in many cases, you're signing up with multiple PPOs. I think the term train is you. I'm a big fan of the TV show The Big Bang Theory, and Sheldon loves trains. So I think of trains, right? So talk about that. So if you sign up with insurance company X, you might also be contracted with insurance company Y, Z, A, B, C, D, and E, right? How does that work?
Yeah, it's the network leasers. So sometimes they can, networks can build their base by going in and individually contracting with each doctor, or sometimes they can get into like an affiliated network where, it contracts you with multiple plans at once. And in many contracts that we're seeing now, which is why it's really important to if you are a CDA member to take us up on what Katie was talking about with the contract analysis, is that we're seeing many contracts now they're automatically putting you into these network leasing situations where you are contracted with many plans. And if that's not what you want to do, it's important to either call the plan to get more clarification or have it removed, or work to have it removed. So
I want to ask something about that because I've seen this. So when someone signs up for plan A and the contract signs them up for 5 or 6 or 10 or 100 other plans, I've seen in some cases, and some doctors have told me that in some cases that the reimbursement to the doctor is going to be, in some cases, the lowest fee schedule of any of those plans. Have you seen that?
Yeah, and that's most commonly what we hear, is that it's going to be paid out on the lowest fee schedule of all the plans. However, recently we've started hearing from some members that the leased situation is actually paying more than the individual plan. It's limited, and we've only heard it from a few people right now. So it's still really important that, again, like for your unique situation or where you're at, that you do the analysis and you really analyze the contract and what the fee schedules are going to be before you sign that contract.
No, that's really, really important. So I am, as I've told my audience for 4.5 years now, I'm required by law to do math since I am a CPA, and this is the Art of Dental Finance and Management. So let's talk a little math here. I know there's no averages or there's no scoreboard here, but what are you guys seeing as far as ranges go for the reduction from UCR fees that these plans, and we know that they're all over the board. It depends on the plan, depends on the area, it depends on whether it's raining or snowing or hailing or a hurricane or whatever. But what are you guys seeing?
Yeah. Go ahead, Katie.
Well, we usually see anywhere from 30 to 50% off of UCR. But again, like you said, it's going to vary based on the patient demographics, based on the volume of contracted providers in a particular region. Of course, we're in California, so rural areas, we don't have as many as the rest of the country or other parts of the country. So, but it is going to depend on the population, the ratio of patient to provider.
Right. So if you're talking about a large metropolitan area with a dentist, I'm not going to say on every corner, but lots of dentists in a particular city, it's less likely that they're going to be high. They might be lower because it's supply and demand. So
yeah. Now, and it also depends on the UCR for the area and how often dentists are increasing their fees, and also how often they are submitting their fee schedules, their UCR fee schedules to the plans. Right. So, and that's a big factor.
I have heard, a number of calls from members that have actually set their UCR to be their highest fee schedule, to match their highest fee schedule. And so I did want to just take this minute to remind everybody that your UCR should be separate. It shouldn't be what your highest fee schedule is.
I have seen that also, and I have explained that to dentists, and they were shocked when they heard that. And they thanked me because when they found out that they could have a regular UCR fee schedule, we added 6 figures to their top line. That's always a nice thing. How about negotiating? Do these insurance companies, let's say you're a dentist and you get in the fee schedule and you're in it for 6 months and you say, wow, this is really low. Can you go in and negotiate? What's your experience been with negotiating the fees? Do they do that?
It hasn't been great. I'm gonna be honest.
That's what I've heard too.
A lot of plans that are saying take it or leave it. There's a lot of plans that say we evaluate fees on an annual basis internally and make adjustments as needed. Sometimes I have asked, like, okay, cool, when was the last time you made an adjustment? And it's like 2014 or something, 2013. So it hasn't been great. We've been working with a consultant that has had some luck with negotiating network leasing contracts. So there's been a little bit of budge there. We've seen some plans when I was in consulting before. I do remember a couple of the smaller plans in our area that did negotiate, and it was really because the pushback was that I did the research and found that it was 4% of the patient base, and that the doctor decided that they would rather be out of network than take that. And so there was a negotiation process there, which was helpful. So again, like understanding your demographics and your numbers and having the tools you need to go into those conversations prior is critical.
Yeah, no, that's important. And again, I know, I mean, California is probably, you guys are the largest state dental society, I would think, or you're in the top two probably. And again, all the state dental societies, I've talked to many directors of those societies. They're all on the same page. They want to help dentists, but some don't have maybe some of the resources that you guys have. So if you have this service you were talking about, Katie and Matt, where you can analyze a PPO contract, can you do that for people that are out of California that maybe they don't have access to that in their state?
We can. We have both access to this service for members and non-members of CDA. If you are outside of California and you're a member of your state association, and then you become an affiliate member of CDA, you could receive this for member pricing. If you're not a member of CDA, we have different pricing. Let me back up and tell a little bit about the service, if you don't mind, Art.
Sure. No, I want you to.
So we have what included with your CDA membership are tons of resources on this topic on our website. And so we have a checklist that's called Evaluating a Dental Benefit Plan, and it walks you through the questions that you would want to ask yourself. And we've approached it from two perspectives. Either you're thinking about contracting with the plan and you have questions about whether this is the right fit for my practice or not. That is one set of questions on the checklist. And then we have another set of questions if you are already in contract with a plan and you're trying to decide, is this the right plan moving forward for my practice? So we've kind of broken it out by new contract or existing contract. That is a resource available to all CDA members, in addition to tons of other resources and access to our practice analysts. So we were finding that there were quite a few members who were coming to us and saying, that's great that you have this checklist, but I don't want to crunch the numbers. I want somebody else to do it for me. So Matt and I, with a small team of analysts at CDA, we created a new service, which is Benefit Plan Consulting. And it is a limited consulting service. It's not full scope consulting. I like to always preface that, we're not going to do like a 12-month contract. It's a limited contract. You can ask us to evaluate a single PPO contract. And what we do is, you and I have had many conversations about, yes. I'm very data metrics driven. We look at the data, we look at the metrics. Matt and I approach this. This is a business decision for your practice. This is no different than any other practice system that you'd evaluate in the dental practice. We look at the data and the metrics, which is why it's really important that your practice management software have good data and good metrics and good analytics, and you're entering the information so that it's clean when we need to pull those analytics. And then we do an evaluation of how the plan is performing in your practice. And we don't compare it to any other plans. We don't compare it to any other provider. It's an individual decision, and it's based on the individual relationship that dentist has with that plan. And then we provide the doctor with a comprehensive report that we call a treatment plan. And essentially what it has in it is our findings. This is how the plan is performing in your practice, and this is the projected impact should you decide to go out of network with the plan. So, and then we have a consultation with the doctor. We go over the findings. We go over all of the recommendations for the practice. It includes practice system recommendations that Matt and I have learned over the years from our consulting experience. And then the decision is ultimately, of course, the doctors to decide if they want to stay in network with that plan or go out of network with the plan. But at least the doctor is given all of the educational tools to make that decision.
That's great. Now,
yeah.
I'm going to give you guys an opportunity. So if anybody is interested in your checklist or this service that you provide, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys and contact you?
They can go to cda.org. They can go to our practice support page on cda.org. We have a landing page as well for benefit plan consulting. There's a quick questionnaire that they can fill out, and it submits it to one of us analysts, and then we respond to that questionnaire to inquire further to see if the doctor understands the service, has any additional questions, and then we can explain the service in a little bit more detail.
Sounds great. All right, yeah. I want to get into the one of the really important topics, which I think everybody listening is interested to hear your comments on. So, okay, so we've joined PPOs, we're in PPOs, and we wake up one day and we say, not feeling the love for PPOs or this PPO or that one. So let's talk about the evaluation process. If a dentist calls you up and says, I'm thinking about getting out of XYZ, or I'm thinking about getting all of mine, or I'm thinking about blowing up my office, whatever it is, right? What is the process to decide? So you guys are consultants, you're coaches, that's what your process is. What's the first step when someone calls you? Because I'm sure you said you're getting a lot of calls like this. Yeah. What do you do? Let's start that conversation and figure out and tell everybody, what do we do? How do you start?
Yeah, I think Matt and I approach this a little bit differently, just because we're, have different backgrounds and obviously different personalities. But my first question to the doctor is, what's driving this decision? And I ask that question because often there's a lot of emotional feelings around PPO contracts. And so my first thing is to establish that while it feels emotional, and there are a lot, and I fully acknowledge the emotionality behind some of the PPO contracts and the way it makes you feel as a practice owner or as a provider, it really is a strategic business decision. So once we've established that, then we move into the analytics. I start with one, what is your practice model? Asking those questions. What is your desired practice model? Let's look at the patient demographics. So if we're looking at, what are the things that we're evaluating? Patient demographics, income of patients, employers in the area, unions in the area, per patient ratio per provider. Some of the other numbers we're looking at, what percentage of your active patients are contracted with this plan? What percentage of your new patients over the last 12 months are contracted with this plan? How is that going to not only impact your active patient ratio, but how is it going to impact your incoming new patient ratio? Are we seeing an increase in contracted patients coming to your practice or a decrease? So that's why it's important to not just look at active patients, but to look at the new patient ratio as well.
I mean, a doctor who, I've had doctors come to me and say, Art, 80% of my patients come from XYZ insurance plan.
Right.
That's a problem. That could be a problem.
Could be a problem. It depends on the patient demographics. If 80% of those patients have the income potential to go to pay the difference between an in-network provider and an out-of-network provider for those services, then it may not be as big of a problem as a practice where the income potential does not support patients paying that difference.
I like to share a story of I grew up in a little tiny town, and I share this when I do this presentation to contract or not, but there was one major employer in our little tiny town, and we were a family of 5. There was 2 dental practices in town, one that took the plan, one that didn't take the plan. And the one that didn't take the plan had lower Yelp and Google review scores. So, it really was just kind of common sense for my family of like, can we afford to pay, the extra like 5 profis out of pocket, for the whole family, and go to an office with lower reviews. So it's like really understanding like what you're having to offer in your community and what's around and what the competition is. And, for us, it was, kind of a no-brainer.
Yep. And reputation plays a big part. I think what Matt is saying is reputation. So we can run the numbers all day long and we can tell you what the analytics say, but reputation is going to make a significant difference. And also your dental team. Is your dental team, what's the relationship that your dental team has with your patient base? And is that relationship going to help you build an out-of-network patient population in your practice?
Yeah, this might be the most important part of this conversation in this entire podcast today. Guys, talk about how and why it's important for the doctor and the team to build trust. The word is trust. To build trust with your patients so that when we get to the next part of this conversation is, okay, you've made the decision now, how do we do it? When you go to tell the patients, they don't go, oh, well, you're a commodity and I'm going to go to the next guy down the street and go to them. So talk about how to build trust with patients is a 2-day course probably, but just talk about why that's really important.
Oh, Matt and I could talk trust and leadership, and we just did a webinar series actually that's on our online learning platform for how to build trust with your dental team. So absolutely, this is going to be critical. And so when we give you that treatment plan, if you go through the service with us, that is one thing that we will, it's a caveat to all of this. So the numbers might say one thing, but your relationship with your team. So I'm a strong believer in your dental team. I can walk into any dental practice, Art, and I can tell if the team trusts the leader. And if the team doesn't trust the leader, they're not going to convey that trust to your patients. So it is that trickle down effect. So it starts with your dental team. Do they trust you? Do they support you? Do you support them? Is there that mutual respect? And have you given your team the tools and the resources and the ability to convey to your patients why they should stay with your practice versus another practice, regardless of your contract with the plan? I think that's just, I think I see a lot of patients who they don't care if the practice owner is in network or out of network. They just want somebody who they can trust. So, it's number one. It's critical. It's the number one critical foundation to every system in the dental practice.
And isn't it really important, guys, that the doctor doesn't just walk in one day and say, we're going out of network? I mean, you've got to have deep meetings with your team and say, hey, listen, I am really, as the leader, I'm looking at changing our relationship with insurance plans and insurance companies. I'm looking at changing our relationship, and I want to talk to you and make sure that we're all on the same page. What is your experience, guys, with teams? Do they say, oh, no, we can't do that, everybody will leave? Or do they say, hallelujah, doctor, let's go, when do we start? What do you see?
Yeah, it really is a mix. There's some that are happy to not have to, work with the plan as much. There's others that, dental employees, dental staff tend to be probably some of the most empathetic people on earth anyways. And so they're already thinking about like, yeah, we're going to lose everybody. They can't afford this. My family has this plan, whatever it may be. And it's critical to have those staff meetings to get your team in alignment and make sure they understand the whys behind it and get their buy-in. Because if your team's not bought in, you're not going to succeed in this process. And, I think I saw one doctor, went up and in the staff meeting, he was getting a lot of pushback from the team. And then, the doctor said like, hey, well, who wants to take a 30% pay cut? And, everybody scoffed, and he's like, I want to pay you what you deserve. And I can't do that if I'm taking this 30% pay cut. So all of a sudden the team rallied like, heck yeah, doc, let's do it.
Yeah, that got their attention.
I approach it too, that I've done a lot of change management training with dental teams over the years. And this is a big shift, and it's a big change for a lot of staff who have worked in dentistry for their entire careers. And so there's a lot of fear that comes with change, and a lot of uncertainty that comes with this process. And it can feel really uncertain, and it can feel really scary. Both Matt and I have walked practices through the process of going out of network, and it can be uncertain. And there are days when you look at the reports and you look at the data, and there can be some moments of panic. And so that's why it's really important to know the numbers going into this before you just make this decision. This is not a decision to take lightly.
No, and we're gonna get into, if you make the decision, what do you do? But I want to make one comment as the numbers guy here. Not that you're not, but I'm the CP. I have these conversations with doctors all the time, and you tell me if I'm wrong. If you're contracted with an insurance plan, and let's just say the average discount of your UCR fees is 40%, which is not unusual. Is it a correct statement to say, okay, doctor, here's the worst thing that'll happen. If you lose 40% of these patients, if they go to other offices, and 60% of those patients stay, and they pay full fee, your full 100% fee, you will have the same revenues and have 40% less work to do, and you get to be on the golf course more. Is that, and I know there's a lot that goes into it, but is that accurate?
Pretty simple.
I think we see closer to
it's a math problem.
Yeah.
I think we see a little closer to 20 to 25%, but
yeah.
Well, whatever the number is, but that's where the evaluation goes.
Yeah.
And that's where, when you do your evaluation, you say, okay, doctor, this plan represents 7% of your revenues, and you have X number of patients. And if you do go choose, and again, you guys never say you should. You never say that, right? It's always, if you choose to go out of network, this is the financial impact. And if you retain X number of patients at your normal fees, you will not have a loss of revenues. And in fact, you'll have more room and you'll have more time to spend with your patients and all this stuff. So
yeah.
So I want to go ahead.
And we break it down. So we look at more than obviously just the fee schedule. So we're looking at the collections per patient with that plan. We're comparing it to the collections per patient for all other patients in the practice. So we're really comparing how all patients in the practice how all other patients in the practice compared to patients with this particular plan, so that you can, as a doctor making this business decision, you can say, okay, is this plan performing similar to all other patients in my practice? Because I often see that you just look at the fee schedule. You see, oh my gosh, I'm taking a 50% write-off on average for all procedure codes. Well, what's the frequency of those procedure codes? If you look at the top 15 or 20 procedure codes, which is what you're really performing, does that ratio go up or down? If you look at the volume of those procedures for those patients on that plan compared to volume of those same procedures for all other patients, you might see that there's a discrepancy or an opportunity where patients on that plan maybe are accepting treatment at a higher or a lower rate than all other patients. And those are important things to note. We look at your treatment acceptance percentage. We look at it for patients on that plan compared to all other patients. So we're looking at all of the metrics, not just the fee schedule.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a doctor who has challenges presenting cases and a team that has challenges closing cases, and you're getting 60% of UCR and you have challenges, what's going to happen when you ask for 100% of UCR, right?
Right. Yep.
So there's more to this than just the numbers. All right, I want to get into, and again, this is a full day course again. So now you've done this analysis, the doctor's done the analysis, and they say, okay, we're going to go out of network with a plan, all plans, everything. We're going to do whatever we're going to do. All right. We don't just send a letter the next day and say, hey, 1,500 active patients. Just want to let you know that we're no longer in network with XYZ Insurance. We don't do that way. So let's spend the rest of our time, and this is really important, talking about what is the process once you've made the decision. We've talked about how you make the decision. Now you've made the decision. How do we do this? So start that discussion with me.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned it or you brought that up that way, because I think back to when I first started learning this process. There was this small community, and this doctor decided that they were going to go out of network with a plan, and they mailed a letter out to the patients, and the patients read the letter, and their thought process generally isn't, I need to call my doctor and find out what this means. It's, I need to call my plan and find out what this means. And, those plan reps are trained to send the patient to an office that's, a mile down the road, and it's going to save them a bunch of money. And that's all they're going to turn it to is money. It's just, they're going to save you money. It's not, you're going to go get better treatment. You're not going to get a better quality of care here. You're going to save a bunch of money if you go to this doctor down the road. So in that same community, the doctor called us and said, like, hey, I also want to go out of network, but I don't want to do it the way this guy did because I got all of his patients.
So I learned something.
Yeah. And so we'd compiled, the strategy for this doctor to go out of network. That was, a 12-month process, but it really began with, 7 months. The recall cycle was about 7 months. 7 months of communicating with patients on, they were going to break up with the plan and not the patient, and why they were breaking up with the plan and what that meant, and that the quality of care was important to them, and they wanted to be an unrestricted provider. And, they followed that strategy, and, the retention was closer to, or attrition was closer to 20%. So, much better than the letter.
So you guys are going to do this in person, face to face with every patient in this practice, right? That's the goal?
Everybody with the plan and or plans that you want to.
Right. Meaning those patients. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then give me an example, Matt and Katie, of, what would you do? You're going to start the conversation. Give me some tidbits. What would you say? By the way, Mrs. Smith, I want to talk to you about something.
Yeah. Katie, you're so good at this.
Well, so the messaging is key to this. And it one, like Matt said, having those staff meetings to prepare your team, multiple staff meetings to prepare your team, and creating messaging that feels like your team are saying it, not some consultant is saying it. I can script and message all day long, Art, but I tend to find that dental office staff, they don't want me telling them how to say something. They want to breathe their own life into the script. So it's really important that you take the messaging and then you say, okay, does this sound like something that Kathy in the front office would say to our patients, who has known our patients for 25 years? Is this something that would come out of Kathy's mouth and not Katie, the consultant's mouth? So it's really important that you develop scripting and messaging that feels comfortable to your staff who are having these conversations. So some of the key language, though, that we use, Matt mentioned it already. It's an unrestricted provider versus we don't take your plan anymore in this office. It's messaging on the phone when a patient calls and says, oh, do you take my PPO plan? And it's messaging to say, we accept all patients who have PPO benefits, and we are happy to file the claim on your behalf and maximize your PPO benefits. So it's not saying, no, we don't take your plan when they call, because the minute they hear no, all they heard was no. It doesn't matter what you say after the no. It's just, no, I can't come to this practice.
So I have a question. So what if the patient in this conversation says, so please tell me, are you in network provider or not? You can't
And
be
that's
dishonest.
No, you can't be dishonest. And so if they say, are you in network? The answer is we are not in network. We are an unrestricted provider, which means you can still come here. We can still maximize your benefits. And we will give you an estimate of what your portion is going to be prior to any treatment with our office.
And you're going to love our office.
Yeah.
Do you ever get into saying, we don't know what the difference is, but in many cases, it is not substantial between whether we're in network or not? Do you ever say things like that, or is that not allowed?
You can, yeah. We recommend giving percentages. That typically we see this is the percentage, the patient portion percentage, and yes, it's an estimate.
Right.
And we have financial resources on CDA.org. We have a financial agreement. In that financial agreement, we have language that the office staff can read to the patient that basically explains the out-of-network relationship with the plan, meaning this is an estimate, these are percentages. When we file the claim, it won't be until we receive the EOB that we understand what the plan is actually going to pay. So it's all in the financial documentation that you want to use to support your conversations.
So, Matt, you mentioned a year. That's what I've heard. So we basically make the decision. We're going to go out of network with this plan. And let's just say it's a plan. Doesn't matter which one. It can be multiple plans, but let's say we go out of the network. We are then going to start the discussion with our team. We're then going to start the discussion with all of the patients in our practice who are patients who are in network. And once we have finished the discussion with as many of them as can come in within a 6-month or 9-month period, once we think we've talked to everybody, then is that when you send the letter out? Is that when you contact the plan? Give me the time frame of how this all works.
Yeah. Going back to the conversations too, I just want to circle back.
Sure.
Really understand who has the strongest relationship with the patient. That's the person that should be having the conversation. So most times that should be the clinician that has the actual face-to-face out-of-network conversation with the patient. It should be the doctor or the hygienist, but in some cases it is going to be that front office person. They don't care what the doctor does. They just come to see the front office person because they love them. There's those patients out there, but making sure that the right person's having it. Contact the plan as far as your question about when to send the letter. Like, you're going to have a target date set on when you want to be out of network, and you've probably been telling your patients like, hey, January 1st is my day, I'm going to be out of network. So you got to understand your contractual obligations of notifying the plan of when you want to be out of network. So if your goal is January 1st and it's a 90-day notification period, then you're going to want to get that letter sent out or email sent out on September 1st to make sure that you fulfill that time requirement.
You want to make sure that you follow whatever the rules are of the contract that you signed. In other words, if you have to give 30 or 60 or 90 days notice, which isn't it most of the plans that's pretty much what we're looking at here?
90 days. Yeah. Most
90 days.
Yeah.
So that gives you the time to plan and get your system set up and all this stuff. But again, it's a process. It's not, we don't even think about giving notice probably until we've talked to as many patients as are affected in our active patient base, right?
Right.
Yeah, and you should try some kind of like a documentation process, because I'll tell you what tends to happen is that you're going to talk to every patient you see face to face over whatever your recall cycle is, right? So 6 or 7 months. And what tends to happen is like everybody comes out of the gate fired up month 1 or 2, and then month 3 or 4, people start falling through the cracks. But you remember those patients that are coming in month 3 and 4, this is their first time seeing you too. So they deserve that communication just as much as the people in months 1 and 2. So it's important to like really be thorough with your documentation on the schedule. Like, hey, this patient has this plan, make sure you talk to them, and then do some kind of unbillable code to try to track whether it was a positive or a negative conversation in the system. And what that does is, one, like if you look at the schedule and say like, okay, 10 patients with that plan came in, I charged out 8 codes. Okay, I only talked to 80% of my patients. I let 20% fall through. I'm probably going to lose that 20% because they're the ones that are going to get the letter.
And doctors, I want to make one point. You are going to lose patients. I don't know of anybody that I've heard of who has chosen to go the route of going out of network that they have retained 100%. There will be patients who just say, nope, I'm going to go to somebody who takes my insurance, and I don't care. You could give me cookies and I'm not going to stay. Right, guys?
Right.
So they have to, and that's hard for some doctors. That, oh my God, I'm going to lose pay. Yeah, but you're at the end of the day, if you can keep your losses to 15 or 20%, which is a good statistic that I've heard, you're going to be more profitable. And you're going to move your practice more towards maybe what it is that you want, which may be a fee-for-service practice. So, and then if there's when ultimately you will send a letter out once you've talked to everybody. And by the way, one more thing, that's why I think you guys, I'm sure, believe in morning huddles, right?
Right.
So as part of a morning huddle, wouldn't it be a good idea to say, oh, by the way, since we've decided to go out of network with XYZ Insurance, Mrs. Jones at 10 and Mrs. Williams at 3 are 2 people we have to talk to, so the whole team knows that this is going on. That's a good idea, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And this is why like Matt said, it's a practice system like any other system in your practice. So it's important that you have the communication documented, you have the plan documented, you add this to your morning huddle agenda as a standing morning huddle agenda item. You have monthly reports that you can run to track those positive, negative, or conversations you missed that didn't happen. You may have patients that say, I need you to follow up with my spouse, and we need, I'm not the only decision maker in my household. So there might be follow-up conversations that you have to have, and that needs to be tracked and noted. So it's a system, and it needs to be tracked and monitored on a daily basis.
Yeah.
All right. Well, go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
When you were talking about notifying the plan too, we have a resource called What You Need to Know About Dropping Dental Plan Contracts that walks you through a lot of this process, but also has the sample letter that you can send out to patients after you've had the conversation, hopefully, and also the sample letter that you can send to the plan for the breakup letter.
The breakup letter.
The breakup letter.
The breakup letter. But
it's not you, it's me.
Before I got married and I was in the dating world, I got lots of breakup letters. No, I'm just kidding.
It is really important, though, throughout this process that you stay adaptable. And, I had mentioned earlier, like charging out, like if the conversation goes negative, or you feel like the patient didn't respond in a favorable manner, and you charge that out as an unbillable code, it's going to give you a list that you can go back to at the end of this process of patients that you talk to, that you can run a report in your practice management software and reach back out to these patients and say, hey, Mrs. Smith, I know when we talked about this, it didn't go very well. So I want to know what other questions you have. It's really important that I keep you, and, whatever it may be, that conversation.
Well, that comes back, and unfortunately, guys, we're about to the point where I'd love to sit here and talk to you for hours and hours because it's so much fun and it's really informative. But what it really comes back to is, doctors, unless you have a culture with your team and with your patients where there's trust and caring, this is not going to go as well. If you don't have a culture let me say that again, if you don't have a culture in your practice where whatever your patients are told by you, they 100% trust you, you're not going to be as successful as changing your relation if you do. And guys, you've had doctors that you've probably had that conversation with, and maybe you talk to them about their practice and you say, you know what, doctor, before you think about going out of network with insurance, you might need to take steps A, B, C, and D to really solidify the trust you have. Have you had those conversations?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've also had the conversation where it's, be adaptable. Like, you don't have to stick to your guns. You made this decision. You get 4 or 5 months in, it's not going as well as you thought. Be adaptable. You don't have to stick with it because you wanted to do it. You can wait, work with your team some more, and come back to it at another point.
But I'm gonna go ahead,
and we've also had a number of doctors who have gone through our consulting service, and they've realized that their practice isn't ready for this, and that's perfectly okay too. They're not saying never ready; they're just saying right now. Maybe they're in a phase where their practice is ramping up still. I had a doctor who had recently gone through a practice transition, and the practice just wasn't ready for this. They didn't have the right systems in place, and so that's perfectly okay. It's something that you can work toward. Again, if it aligns with your practice model. I keep going back to that.
So here's the last thing, and then we're going to have to call it a podcast that I want to share, and I want to just quickly get your comments. Doctors, I have talked to numerous dentists who have done this, who have gone through and who have either gone out of network with a plan or have converted their practice over a period of time to fee for service. Not only have they been successful if they've done it correctly, they are making a lot more money. They are much happier. They're spending more time with their patients, and their whole practice experience is more enjoyable. Would you say, guys, in conclusion to this discussion, that if you do make the decision, and it's a difficult decision, to change your relationship with an insurance plan or all insurance plans, that if done correctly, you can absolutely do this successfully?
Loaded question, Art. Yeah.
All my questions are loaded.
We are very cautious in our in this approach, right? And I think that but all the things you said, if you are looking at this as a long-term strategy for your business, if you have evaluated your demographics, you've evaluated the practice model, you know that your practice model fits within the patient demographics, then yes, it's possible. We have consultants that we can refer you to use a consultant to walk you through the out-of-network process. And we obviously are highly supportive of consultants because we've been consultants ourselves. So I think you need to decide, is this something you can do on your own? Do you have the dental team that can do this independent of a consultant? If not, there are experts out there. There are tons of consultants who are excellent at helping your practice navigate through the out-of-network process.
Katie Fornelli and Matthew Nelson from the California Dental Association. Incredibly valuable information. I love talking to you guys. I wish I could just sit here on the microphone all day, every day and do this. That's what I want to do. But
thank you.
Guys, you've been wonderful. Katie, thank you for including me as part of what you're doing at CDA. Let's real quick again, June 10th in the Bay Area. Thinking we don't have a location at this moment, but probably
by the time this airs, we will. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So it'll be somewhere in the Bay Area somewhere.
Yes.
And then June 22nd is in Sacramento, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So go to cda.org and again, where do they go to sign up?
They go to virtual and live events, and we'll have a landing page there. It's called Now and Next in Dentistry, Mapping Your Career.
Okay. And guys, if you want to come and see me at the CDA, I am speaking, I think, twice on Saturday, once at the Spot and once to dentists who are looking at acquiring dental practices, and then maybe a third time. Katie, we're still working on that because I worked for Katie that week. Is kind of the
we're
way
keeping
it works.
You busy.
You're keeping me busy. And then we are at booth 1472. Please come by and say hi to us. Folks, thank you again for the privilege. And guys, stay on here till I take the podcast out. Thank you for the honor and privilege of your time, for listening to my podcast. Some of you have been with me since December of 2018, I think it was. We've been doing this now for 4 years. I know, or was it 2017? I don't even remember anymore. We're coming up on 4.5 years. I want to thank my partner again, Decisions in Dentistry Magazine, www.decisionsindentistry.com. Great clinical content, 140 continuing education courses at a very, very reasonable price. If you're looking for a dental CPA, I'm a member of the Academy of Dental CPAs, 25 CPA firms that represent over 10,000 dentists in the United States. We are at Eide Bailly, where I was one of the founding members of this group. If you have any questions or you're looking, we do take new clients. You have to be nice. That's the requirement. You have to be nice. We want nice people, and 99.99% of our clients are super, super nice people. I mean, I have just some of my best friends in the world are private practice dentists, and I just played golf with one of them a couple of days ago. So, give me a call, 657-279-3243. And email me if you need anything, Wiederman, WIEDERMAN, at eidebailly.com. Katie Fornelli and Matthew Nelson from the California Dental Association, thank you for everything that you do to help our doctors. And thank you for taking your time today.
Thank you, Art.
Thanks, Art.
Okay, and then with that, everyone, I want to again thank you for listening and let you know that is it for this episode of the Art of Dental Finance and Management with Art Wiederman, CPA. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Art of Dental Finance and Management podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. The Art of Dental Finance and Management podcast is produced by Eide Bailly in partnership with Art Wiederman, CPA, Decisions in Dentistry Magazine, and the Academy of Dental CPAs. For audience questions and feedback, email Art Wiederman, awiederman@eidebailly.com. That's AWIEDERMAN @EIDEBAILLY.com. Or you may call Art at 657-279-3243.